Before we get into today's video, if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now and turn on the bell notification, because what you are about to see might completely change the way you look at the coins sitting in your drawer, your old box, or even your wallet. This channel is dedicated to people who understand that real wealth sometimes hides in the most ordinary places. Now let's get into it. There are moments in history when something small, something that fits right in the palm of your hand, quietly carries the weight of an entire era. Most people walk past these moments every single day without ever knowing it. They drop a coin into a machine, toss it into a jar, or forget about it entirely at the bottom of a bag. And that is exactly how fortunes are lost, not in dramatic crashes or market collapses, but in everyday ignorance of what something is truly worth. Today we are talking about one specific coin. One piece of metal that was minted in the year 2000 in Australia. On the surface, it looks like just another 50-cent piece. Dodecagonal shape, 12 sides, the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II on one side, and on the other, a design created to mark one of the most significant moments in modern human history, the turn of the millennium. The dawn of the year 2000. A moment that billions of people around the world held their breath for. Now think about what the year 2000 actually meant to people. There was fear. There was excitement. There was that worldwide tension known as Y2K, where governments and corporations spent hundreds of billions of dollars preparing for potential computer system failures. News channels ran countdowns for months. People stockpiled food, water, and emergency supplies. The entire planet had its eyes locked on one date. And right in the middle of all that cultural electricity, the Royal Australian Mint did something that only a handful of people truly understood at the time. They made a mistake. And that mistake turned an ordinary coin into something that collectors today hunt for with serious money. The Australian 50-cent coin has a long and fascinating history that most people never think about. It was first introduced when Australia converted to decimal currency on the 14th of February, 1966. The original design featured the Commonwealth coat of arms struck on a coin made from 80% silver. That original round silver coin from 1966 already holds value today because of its precious metal content. But the story we are focused on today goes far beyond silver content. It goes into the territory of minting errors, rare varieties, and the extraordinary difference between a coin that millions of people touched and a coin that only a fraction of those people actually held in the year 2000. The Royal Australian Mint released a commemorative 50-cent coin into circulation celebrating the dawn of the new millennium. The reverse of the coin had a new design featuring a stylized Australian flag with a large legend, Millennium Year, and 50 cents. For those unfamiliar with the Australian flag, it consists of the Union Jack in the top left, the 7-pointed Federation star below it, and the constellation of the Southern Cross to the right. It was a patriotic, carefully designed coin meant to mark one of the most iconic moments of the 20th century. The mintage for this coin was enormous. The Royal Australian Mint produced approximately 16,630,000 of them. 16 million. That number alone would normally place this coin firmly in the category of common, low-value collectibles. If you had 16 million of anything sitting in circulation, it would not typically be considered rare. It would not typically make anyone's pulse quicken at an auction table. And for the vast majority of those coins, that is exactly the case. They are worth a few dollars at best in uncirculated condition, but there is something hiding inside that mintage number. Something that completely shatters that logic. And it comes down to one small detail on the reverse of the coin. One feature that most people who held this coin never even noticed. That one detail is the flag. Specifically, the way the flag sits on the coin's surface. On the standard version of this coin, the Australian flag appears in raised relief. It stands proud above the surface of the coin, elevated, bold, and clearly visible. That is how it was designed. That is how the overwhelming majority of those 16 million coins came out of the mint. But on a small number of coins, something went differently. Something happened during the production process that no one intended, and the result was a coin that looks nearly identical to the standard version at first glance, but reveals something completely different the moment you look closely. On this rare variety, the flag is in use. That word, in use, is one of the most important words in the world of coin collecting. It means the design element is pressed into the surface of the coin rather than standing above it. Instead of the flag rising up toward you, it sinks inward, recessed into the metal. The flag on this coin goes down instead of up. It is inverted in terms of its depth. And that single difference, that one-directional shift of a design element that most people would never even think to examine, is what separates a coin worth a few dollars from a coin worth a great deal more. This variety is known among collectors as the 2000 Millennium Incuse Flag 50-cent coin. And what makes this particularly extraordinary is the story of how it came to exist. It was not a random accident caused by worn machinery or careless workers. The Royal Australian Mint itself later confirmed the origin of this variety. According to their official response to collectors who contacted them directly, the Mint had initially intended to include a 50-cent coin with an ink-use flag design in the uncirculated mint sets for the year 2000. A single reverse die with that specific characteristic was prepared with that intention in mind. But somewhere in the production chain, that die made its way into the general circulation striking process, and approximately 200,000 coins were struck with this ink-use flag before the error was identified. 200,000. Compared to 16,630,000. That means roughly 1 out of every 83 coins in that original mintage carries this rare variety. And given that most people who received this coin in change simply spent it, saved it in a tin without ever examining it, or discarded it without a second thought, the number of high-quality surviving examples of this ink-use flag variety is far, far smaller than that 200,000 figure suggests. Now here is where it gets even more interesting for the men in this audience who understand how value is built. Think about what happened to most of those 200,000 ink-use flag coins. They went into circulation. They were handled. They were rubbed in pockets, dropped on floors, thrown into piggy banks, and passed from hand to hand through shops, markets, and petrol stations across Australia. Every time a coin is handled, its grade drops. In the world of coin collecting, grade is everything. The difference between a coin in circulated condition and a coin in mint state, meaning untouched and pristine, can represent a value difference of hundreds or even thousands of dollars. A coin that spent years rolling around in someone's change drawer is a fundamentally different asset from a coin that was pulled from a fresh mint set, placed in a protective capsule, and stored carefully for decades. And when you combine genuine rarity with exceptional preservation, you create something that collectors and investors are willing to pay serious money to own. Not because a coin is old. Not simply because it is Australian. But because it represents a perfect collision of historical timing, manufacturing anomaly, limited survival in high grade, and confirmed authenticity. In 2006, years after these coins had already been in the world, a dedicated collector of Australian decimal coins made a discovery that would send ripples through the numismatic community. Examining coins from this Millennium series carefully, this collector noticed something that had gone undetected for 6 years. The flag on certain coins looked different. It sat differently. And once that discovery was shared, the hunt began in earnest. That discovery in 2006 changed everything for this coin. Word spread through collector networks, through coin shows, through the tight-knit communities of men and women who spend their lives studying the details that everyone else overlooks. And what happened next is exactly what always happens when genuine rarity is confirmed in a market that did not previously know about it. Demand surged. Prices climbed. And the people who had quietly set aside examples of this coin years earlier, perhaps without even knowing exactly what made them different, suddenly found themselves holding something far more valuable than they had realized. This is one of the most important lessons that the world of numismatics teaches, and it is a lesson that resonates deeply with anyone who has spent time building wealth through patience and knowledge. The value was always there. The rarity was always there. The coin did not change. What changed was awareness. And in markets driven by awareness, the person who knows first always wins. The collector who identified that ink-use flag variety in 2006 was not lucky. That collector was attentive, disciplined, willing to look at something that millions of people had already handled and ask the question that most people never think to ask. What am I actually looking at right now? That question is the foundation of every great find in the coin collecting world. And it is the reason that serious collectors, the kind of men who have been doing this for decades, will tell you that the most dangerous assumption you can make is that you already know what something is worth. The Australian 50-cent coin from the year 2000 looks, at a distance, exactly like any other commemorative 50-cent coin. It is the same size, the same shape, the same weight. It carries the same portrait of Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse. It has the same general design elements on the reverse. The difference is subtle enough that the average person would walk right past it. But subtle does not mean insignificant. In the world of rare coins, subtle differences are often where the entire story lives. Now let us talk about condition, because this is where things get particularly compelling for collectors who understand what certified grading actually means. When a coin is submitted to a professional grading service and comes back with a high grade in mint state condition, it is being certified as one of the finest surviving examples of that specific issue. For the ink-use flag variety of the 2000 Millennium 50-cent coin, high-grade examples are extraordinarily difficult to find. Remember that the majority of these coins entered circulation. They were never set aside as collectibles in the moment they were produced because most people did not know they were collectible. They were spent. They were worn. They were lost. The coins that survived in top condition typically did so by accident. Perhaps someone pulled a particularly attractive coin from their change and dropped it into a box without spending it. Perhaps a coin ended up in a mint set or collection early in its life before the ink-use variety was even recognized. Whatever the circumstances, the coins that exist today in high uncirculated grades represent a genuinely tiny fraction of the original 200,000, and that scarcity in top condition is precisely what drives the most serious collector interest and the most significant auction results. There is also another layer to this story that adds historical weight beyond the minting anomaly itself. The year 2000 was not just any year. It was the year Australia also celebrated the centenary of Federation, 100 years since the 6 separate British colonies of the continent united to form the Commonwealth of Australia on the 1st of January 1901. The millennium and the Federation centenary arriving in the same year gave the Royal Australian Mint enormous creative energy and produced some of the most commemoratively rich coinage the country had ever seen. The 50-cent denomination in particular carried tremendous symbolic importance during this period, and the millennium coin sat right at the center of that numismatic moment. Here is the final part 4 of your script, approximately 700 words. That cultural electricity is precisely what gives this coin its deeper meaning beyond the numbers. When you hold a 2000 Australian Millennium 50-cent coin in your hand, you are holding a piece of metal that was struck during one of the most emotionally charged transitions in modern human history. The world was counting down. Fireworks were being planned on every continent. Children were being told they were living through a moment they would describe to their grandchildren one day. And right in the middle of all of that, a single die at the Royal Australian Mint was producing coins that nobody fully understood yet. Coins that would sit quietly in pockets and purses and shoeboxes for years while their true significance waited patiently to be discovered. That is the nature of rare coins. They do not announce themselves. They do not come with labels that say "pay attention to me." They require the kind of careful, unhurried attention that most people in a fast-moving world simply never apply to the objects around them. But the men who do apply that attention, the collectors who have spent years developing the eye and the knowledge to recognize what others miss, those are the men who end up sitting across from auction specialists and watching numbers climb in ways that make the room go quiet. And that brings us to authentication, which is a critical part of this particular coin's story. Because where there is value, there will always be those who attempt to manufacture it artificially. The ink-use flag variety of the 2000 Millennium 50-cent coin has been the subject of deliberate fraud attempts. The proof version of this coin, which was included in year 2000 proof sets, featured a colored Australian flag applied using pad printing technology. Unscrupulous sellers have been known to remove these proof coins from their sets and expose them to acid or chemical solvents to strip the color from the surface. The result is a coin with a blank open field where the colored flag should be, which can then be presented to unsuspecting buyers as a genuine circulation error. This is why professional third-party grading and certification from a respected numismatic authority is not optional when purchasing a coin of this caliber. It is essential. A genuine ink-use flag variety will show specific characteristics in the flag field that a chemically altered proof coin cannot replicate, and a certified example from a reputable grading service removes all doubt. This is the kind of knowledge that separates serious collectors from casual ones. And it is the kind of knowledge that protects you when real money is on the table. Because make no mistake, real money absolutely is on the table when it comes to this coin. The trajectory of values for high-grade examples of the Incuse flag variety has been consistently upward as awareness has grown, as surviving high-grade examples have become increasingly difficult to locate, and as the global collector market for Australian numismatic rarities has expanded beyond the continent's own borders into international auction rooms where serious buyers from multiple countries compete for the finest known examples. Think about what this coin represents as a complete package. It is a genuine government-issued coin, not a token, not a replica, not a reproduction. It carries the portrait of one of the most recognized monarchs in modern history. It commemorates the turn of a millennium that the entire planet marked together. It exists as a confirmed minting variety produced in limited numbers by accident rather than intention. It survived decades in a world where most of its kind were spent, worn, or lost. And in the finest preserved examples, it represents a genuine numismatic rarity that serious collectors actively seek and compete to own. So what is a high-grade example of the 2000 Australian Millennium Incuse flag 50-cent coin actually worth today? After everything we have covered in this video, after understanding the history, the rarity, the condition sensitivity, the authentication considerations, and the growing international collector demand, the number that top certified examples of this coin have commanded is a figure that stops people in their tracks. The value of this remarkable coin at its highest recorded level reaches 2.8 million baht. That is not a misprint. That is not an exaggeration. That is what genuine rarity, preserved condition, confirmed authenticity, and historical significance produce when they all come together in one small 12-sided piece of Australian metal. If you found this video valuable, if it changed the way you think about the objects around you and the hidden stories they carry, then do one thing right now. Hit that subscribe button. Because on this channel we find the extraordinary hiding inside the ordinary, and we are just getting started.